If you want that much 5K in your snare, you could have it and you're still not going to bring up the hi-hat. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's disgusting. But if you want it, it can be yours. There you go. Phase cancel your snare drums. It'll change your life. Hey everybody, Resident Loser Jeremy here, and today I want to talk about drums. Specifically, I'm going to be working on a snare drum. So what I want to look at is you've got a mix going on. You don't want to use samples. You want to use the natural drums you have because they're your drums and you like them. But there's a whole lot of bleed. It's a dense mix, so we have to compress these drums, and all we're doing when we compress the snare is we're bringing up everything around it. So first, let's take a listen here to the whole thing, and these are relatively raw drums. We can see here, and I gained up this snare on purpose to kind of show you this will work. So this is already a little compressed, even coming in, just to exacerbate the issue. But I want to show you, and you can even see how lobbed off the tops of the snares are right there. So it's not a pretty start. And if we just listen to the snare, even from a starting point, there's a lot of things that aren't the snare drum going on there. So let's just hit a compressor here. Pull it down from my other screen so you can see it. Now let's start with kind of a 4-to-1. Even if I start compressing this, there's no headroom here. Let's even EQ it. So if I want to bring up the top end on this snare, like 10K, right where that cool stick attack is on this thing, there lives the hi-hat, and that ain't gonna do. I'm gonna show you a little trick. What happens if we literally duplicate this, and let's snare top 2. So all we did is duplicate. I'm gonna put trim on these things just so both of these have exactly the same processing the entire time. If we play both of these together, it's just going to be louder, right? Let's take a look. Yep, it's louder, and that's because we have the exact same waveform stacked on top of itself. So what's happening? We're just making it louder. But if we flip the phase, watch this. We have nothing. And yes, Pro Tools is playing right now. Nothing is happening. I hit the phase button. There you go. So what is actually going on here? If we zoom way in here, these are two identical waveforms. So if I literally flip one, let's look at this. And I'm going to go in here. Invert. So if we have two things going up together, we're just going to get more signal. But if we exactly flip one, you can see how it completely cancels out the other one. You can think of this as positive and negative. If you have two positives, 2 and 2 is 4. But if you have 2 and -2, you have 0. So that's kind of what we're going to be operating on for the rest of this. Keep that in the back of your mind. I don't want to get too scientific here, mostly because I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about. But this trick works. I'm going to move these to a folder. And if we're not in Pro Tools 2020, you can do the same thing with an aux. I just want to use a folder. So whatever is happening to both of these guys. Cool. Okay, so we got a super loud snare. So boop, boop. Now we got nothing because it's phase canceling. This is where this gets interesting. If we want to do this, we're going to put a compressor. All right, let's just go grab any. You don't have to have Pro Tools Ultimate to get this Pro compressor. This is also a native AX plugin. Go get this. It's cool. I think it's like $40. I am not sponsored by Avid, but that would be dope. What we want to do is just make everything as fast as possible. Give me all the ratios. And now we're going to... So what's happening now? Essentially, we have these exact signals. They're phase flipped, but whatever this compressor grabs and pulls that down, now it's not phase canceling. So it'd be the exact same thing if I were to make that inactive, start with this at 0. I'm going to slowly fade it in and listen to what it does to the signal. See? And once we get to 0, it's going to completely cancel out. And once we go beyond unity, it's going to, one of those signals is going to win, right? The positive or the negative. Essentially, that's exactly what this compressor is doing, but it's only going to react to the snare hits. So let me bring this back. Let's just bring this down until we can hear snares. I'm going to get rid of some of the bass that it's hearing. Okay, there I'm only getting snares. Cutting everything out. If we want to put this release down, we're just going to have a... Just when that snare hits, it's ducking just a little bit. Any EQ, I don't care. Let's go, sure, why not? Pull up the high pass filter. And basically, now you can think of this as only affecting the high frequencies. Playing with phase, we're canceling things out. Now we're just telling the track what we don't want canceled out. So we use the compressor to duck on those snare hits. So it says, okay, I'm not going to cut out on the snare hits. And now we're basically telling this phase cancellation, I don't want you to listen to the low frequencies. I only want you to cut the high frequencies. So it's going to get rid of that hi-hat for us. Now take a listen to this once I bring it up. Bring it somewhere. Okay, now we can still hear there's bleed in this mic. This is still the snare we started with. We're hopefully just canceling out the top end information that's surrounding this snare, so we can EQ it the way we want to, and we can compress it the way we want to, and we can bring it as loud in the mix as we want to without also bringing up everything else around. Let's see how close we're getting. So that's essentially off right there. I'm going to bring it down until we can kind of hear that hi-hat go away. Yeah, I can even get rid of that ride. And once you start to push it too far, you can really tell you're messing with the sound of the snare. But now let's listen to what we have and what we started with. Pretty cool. So now we can come up here and we can EQ this the way we want to. So let's grab Fab Filter just for fun. Yeah. So I could literally go crazy with this thing. Not saying this sounds good. I'm just saying watch what I can do. Now I can come in here and mute this phase canceled version and listen to what happens. Back in. Is that not crazy? Even in the mix now, this doesn't sound terrible. Like, I can really crank this snare and the hat is not killing us. But if I mute this, Now, if you really want even more control, you can follow this up with a gate. Now, one thing I've loved playing with is this Oxford drum gate. It's not perfect, but when you give it this signal now, it's like we're using a sample for our own snare. What you want to follow this up with is you want to make this as natural as possible. And what a snares love, but disgusting reverbs. Verbiage is awfully cool. You know what? Let's use something a little different. Snares love reverb. We're going to try room. I want to call it room. I don't know if that's what they want me to call it. But let's just pull up a preset here. Studio drums. Hey, sounds great. That's pretty dope. I mean, I know I'm clipping. I'm exaggerating the poop out of this just so you can see what's going on. But now when I unmute this, let's pay attention to what happens. That difference is crazy. I gotta say, I've been playing with this reverb right here, this room reverb, and I love it. Getting a little bit of the kick in there, and that's okay. All we're doing is ignore everything on this snare thing. This is just the extras. This is processing it after the fact. I'm not saying this is how I want my snare to sound for this. It's not going to be how I want my snare sounds for this. But these tracks right here, I have a trim on both of these initially. That's just to turn down the signal. Because like I said, I brought this in and I affected these snares in a way. I turned their gain way up. I clipped them to literally cut off the top of the snares and bring up the level of the hi-hats and all that background noise to make this more difficult. Now, if I start with the original snare, it's not going to be that bad, and the result's actually going to be a whole lot better. You can still isolate your snare drum. Now, it might take a little bit of work because it's not getting every single one of these hits perfect, but a little bit of time and a little bit of automation, and you've taken care of it, and you did not have to lean on a sample. And the drummer's always going to be more happy because that's their equipment. I'm not saying samples are bad. I'm not saying don't use samples. You don't have to automatically reach for a sample as if it's the easy button. This is pretty easy. So essentially all I've got are two trim things that's probably not going to be applicable to your session. Turning this down before it hits the compressor because I wanted a little more headroom going into this thing. I have this compressor set to literally only grab when the snare is happening. So if we're listening to just this track, you can hear it turning it down. Like it's turning the track down every time the snare hits. That's exactly what we want. After that, I have an EQ. This just happens to be channel strip, and I'm getting rid of all the low frequency below 400. Now we could start at the top and slowly bring that down. So now when we get rid of this, I'm saying, hey, ignore the high frequencies. So now we have a track that's ducked every time the snare hits, but it's everything above 400 hertz. So we don't have the bass of the snare. We don't really have the body of the kick drum. We don't have the body of the snare drum. But when we combine that with the original, and keep in mind, we're phase canceling everything we could hear on that track. Now we're phase canceling all the cymbals, all of the hi-hat, all of that gross bleed, and except for when the snare hits. And again, I like to EQ it a little bit. I add another little gate just to make it that much more tight, and then give it a nice little reverb to kind of bring back some of that stuff that we lost gating it this hard, and then you end up with something like this. And this is clipping like crazy because I'm just showing you extremes, and I'm going nuts here just to show you. Like, if you want that much 5K in your snare, you could have it, and you're still not going to bring up the hi-hat. How about this? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's disgusting. But if you want it, it can be yours. There you go. Go phase cancel your snare drums. It'll change your life. Anyway, guys, if you want to support the channel, I'll put a link in the description to my store. I have IRs for sale. I have some free IRs you can look at. I sell some drum samples, and I've got some little odds and ends you can purchase if you're into production and stuff like this. I love this trick when you really have something you can't go back and fix, or you're in a situation like this. This could really save your bacon. Give me a thumbs up for this. This is a cool trick. The person who taught me years ago shared it to me, and it changed my world for a long time. I asked them if I could share this. But give me a thumbs up if you've never seen it before. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We got a cool video coming up of a plugin that I think is really interesting, and a lot of people are anticipating the release of this thing. But it's something I've been working on behind the scenes for a while, and I can't wait to release that one. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when that comes out. Anyway, guys, I'm Resident Loser Jeremy. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.